The Gods and Monsters ink formulation, I almost have trouble describing how much I adore it, because it just opens up that window of creativity, that window of opportunity that as artists we all love. And developing these colours for this new collection of Gods and Monsters inks has been so much fun. The first set was based on the Greek mythology of gods and monsters. And in this new set, we take the Roman names for that same mythology and build on the gorgeous colours. The set comes in a lovely box that you can use to display your inks. They're all individually packaged so that they get to you nice and safely. And there's also a set of stickers so that you can label whatever you create, be it misters, or you make your own markers with our new Inky Depths water brushes, or whatever it is that you want to create with them. I always absolutely love naming my colours. I think a name has power, and the name's very carefully selected. Let's start with the deepest, richest colour. This is Pluto. He's the Roman version of Hades, the god of the underworld, and Pluto loosely translates as rich father, because what's underground? Gems, ores. He's a wealthy man. So we have all of those dark, earthy colours that all go into this black, and as this colour dries, you'll see the various earthy colours coming out from within it. Cyclops is this dank green, sort of a dense, strong colour, kind of like the Cyclops, which were a type of creature made by a god, by Neptune or Poseidon, and they were seen as men that had no civilization, no civility, no laws. They lived on their own and, were just these big, powerful creatures. Best avoided by mortal men if you didn't want to invite a whole sackload of trouble. But as a colour, it's got that earthiness, that primal instinct. But look how the colour, it starts off as like a dark green. It's got little edges of turquoise because, son of Poseidon. And the deep licheny, mossy colours that you would find in a cavern, which is where the Cyclops usually lived. Next we have Centaur. Now the centaurs are kind of a strange creature. They're half man, half horse. And like the Cyclops, they were seen as being very physically strong, a little bit uncivilised, well, rather uncivilised, but they certainly were more intellectual and capable of thought, and some of them were quite venerated as philosophers and teachers. The gods were quite partial in handing their demigods, their children with mortals, off to centaurs as to teach them. They were regarded as being quite intellectual, quite clever. But they definitely had a little bit of a wild side, and I think that this deep red, chocolatey, reddish brown has that as well. Now, Jupiter is the colour of the planet, the big sandstorms or whatever kind of storms they are that happen on the planet Jupiter. Jupiter is the Roman equivalent of Zeus. So he's the king of the gods, if you will, and that's why he also has the biggest planet named after him. It's kind of a big deal. And this colour, this deep coral, is just one of my favourites. It's a friend of Hermes from the Greek collection, but the colour is richer and a little bit more orange. This is Venus. Venus is the Roman equivalent of Aphrodite, the goddess of love. And it's actually got a lot of beautiful pink undertones. If you add a lot of water to it, you're going to get a very, very soft pastel pink. But if you let it build up into its full strength, almost is going into a coral pink. It's quite an unusual colour. It's sort of like a warm and a cool pink at the same time, and then as it dries it will split. But also let me just draw your attention to the way that the different colours are playing with each other and they're moving to each other. Look at Pluto. The purplish deep shades are really starting to come up and contrast with the greys that are in it. There's almost browns in there. It's just the most glorious colour. Look what's happening to Cyclops and Jupiter and Centaur. Just really beautiful base notes. That's what it reminds me of. Just, but still lively and vibrant, even though these are darker colours. This colour is Pegasus, who probably my favourite mythological figure. He's sprung, fully formed, a magnificent white stallion with huge white wings from the neck of his from the blood of his mother, Medusa the Gorgon. And he flew straight towards a storm. This is how the story goes. And Athena just happened, the goddess of strategic thinking and of many other things, but let's just say cleverness, self-declared cleverness. She saw him and just was godly gobsmacked and decided to make friends with him and train him. Basically, she had to create a magical golden bridle to do it. But he does appear as a hero. Actually, no, he is a hero from time to time himself, but he also occasionally will lend a hoof to a adventuring hero while they're on the various quests. And the colour that I've assigned to Pegasus, like I said, he's one of my favourite mythological figures, and this is one of my favourite colours, so that is why those two are connected. It might be a strange connection, but that is what it is. Next, we have Neptune, who is the Roman equivalent of Poseidon, the god of the oceans. Not really an entity you want to come to the attention of. And it just sounds too hard to stay in his good graces, so you're better off just admiring the ocean and not trying to get too close to the god who controls it. But the colour, this is a beautiful, beautiful deep blue that has purple that will come through as we watch it develop and start to shade and gradiate and split into its various parts. The next really lovely deep blue is Scylla. Scylla started off as a human woman, and she was driven mad by events, and she became quite committed terrible, terrible sins in her devastated state, and Zeus felt so bad for her that he put her basically into a coma, into a sleep, and put her at the bottom of the ocean where she could rest. And she was incredibly beautiful. She wouldn't have gotten that kind of attention from Zeus, believe me, if she wasn't incredibly beautiful. They only had time for the incredibly beautiful. So she was there resting after her ordeals until Poseidon came along and saw her and just thought she was just the most beautiful thing, woke her up, and cut a long story short, a very powerful sorceress called Circe ended up transforming into the most hideous monster with heads rising off her back in long tentacled necks, and she just had gaping chasms and teeth all over, and it was just a fright to behold. And she never really calmed down. She clambered into a sea cliff where anyone that came passing by she would devour, make short work of. So the colour Scylla is named for where she should have remained, which was at peace at the bottom of the ocean. So it's a beautiful dark blue. Hydra is the most incredible, gorgeous turquoise that has little lavender undertones and sea mist or sea foam colours. The Hydra was a creature that lived in a lake right before the underworld, before you began that journey, and sort of patrolled it. It had many heads. One of them was divine or immortal, so the whole thing couldn't be killed as such until Hercules came along, and he managed to sort of kill off the rest of the heads with the help of a cousin, and he had to put the immortal head under a rock. It might still be there to this very day, I don't know. And I know it was a hideous monster, etc., but I feel bad for the monsters because it was perfectly happy living its life, being a wild creature and doing what it did, until someone that decided to prove their own worth. They had to go and mess with it, and that's why it gets a lovely colour, because I do feel bad. I feel bad for the creatures that were killed off by the heroes. We've also got Minerva, which happened while I was talking about the Hydra. Minerva is the equivalent of Athena, one of the most revered and popular gods because she was wise. She was the goddess of strategic war, which, the ancient Greeks and the ancient Romans were very into. She's credited with inventing olives, and that is why Athens is named after her. She's fabulous at weaving and spinning, and was credited with creating sails, which she made for the Argo, Jason and the Argonauts' boat, which, according to these ancient Greek myths, was the first seagoing sailing ship. So, very, very popular figure. This next beautiful green is Chimera. Chimera was a rather fabulous monster, again picked off by one of these demigod heroes. I've had enough of them, seriously. The Chimera had the head of a lion, the body of a goat, I don't know why, and the tail was a dragonish, snakish contraption. So a chimera was just a mishmash of scary things. It breathed fire. In some myths it had poison gases. It was just a fearful sight to behold. And I don't think this colour is fearful, but as I dab some of the excess ink away, you can see all of the different colours that live within each of these inks. They're just so complex. Now we're going to finish with Mercury, which is one of my favourites. It's coming up looks a little bit greenish on camera. Depending on what you're creating on, it's actually quite yellow. Almost like a highlighter yellow, but without the fluorescence in it. So it's a really, really interesting colour, and it's one of my favourites in this whole set. There are so many different ways that you can use these inks. That's just what makes ink such a fabulous art supply, is just how versatile it is. And I've shown you it loaded into the Inky Depths water brushes so that you're making your own mermaid markers effectively. And here I'm going to use them with my water wands. Water wands are a water-soluble pencils, basically watercolour in a stick, but you don't just have to activate them with water. We can activate them with the inks. So let's have a look at them when we combine them with the new gorgeous Gods and Monsters. And if you wanted to see this process in real time, this video is from one of my live streams, or love streams as they call them, and you can find them on my Facebook page under Jane Davenport Artist. Not to be confused with just my normal old personal profile page, which I hardly ever post on. It's all happening on my artist page and in my group, the Jane Davenport Mixed Media group. So I'm using not just the colours from the new Roman set. The colour that I just put down there was Cerberus, which goes down sort of like an olive green, and then it develops into its beige colours. It's also got some pinky undertones as well. Fabulous ink. And of course you can mix these inks with all of my other inks. Here I've got a little bit of Star Power in Jean, which is a really, really shimmery, fine mica gold. And into these little puddles of Gods and Monsters inks and Star Powers and the mingling colours, I'm just running my water wands through that and adding those pencil lines as well, so that the pencil activates as I'm using it. If you're going to do that, activating the pencil while, like, rather than putting the pencil down, adding water, just make sure you dry your pencils off after you've used them, so that the pencil's not got too much water in it and sitting there activating away and turning into a watercolour. And just creating those colours and waving my water wands around through the other inks just also gives the inks on the other side of the page a chance to dry. And just to repeat myself, of course you can use these inks on any type of paper. I'm again using my levitation paper. The reason it's called lev-artation is because, well, you have an elevated experience when you are using it, but it's also the same type of paper as was used for mail, for letter paper back in the day when everything had to be extremely light. And it's fabulously fountain pen, not just friendly, loving, and it really brings out the personalities of each of these inks. So have fun using them with other inks and with other art supplies, pencils, paint pens, whatever else you want to experiment with. They're going to love that, because they are a curious ink that's going to allow for your experimentation, and everything's an experiment in art, really. So much fun. Now, this is a little snippet from an online workshop that I'm preparing at the time of recording this, and I'm working on the levitation paper. This paper is just so great for inks, so I can throw anything at it. Sure, I'll get a little bit of crinkling. That will ease when the paper is dry. It never really completely goes away, and that's part of its charm. But if that doesn't appeal to you, then, well, it won't appeal to you, but certainly appeals to me. I've misted this ink. I've got it in one of my little pen sprayers, the Mr. Right, which actually does have a pen nib at the other end, hence the name. And as the Scylla and Hydra and Neptune inks are drying and mingling with each other, I'm also using one of my Take a Dip glass pens. This is the Butterfly Edition one. And I'm creating a little bit of a Minerva / Athena moment. Sometimes she transformed herself into an owl. The gods could usually transform themselves into various creatures or disguise themselves as mortals. And Athena was her pick, but she also had an owl that hung around with her as well. Sort of was her messenger, her spy, and just her friend, most likely, the wise owl. And the owl is regarded as wise even to this day, just from that association with a goddess. So the ink, you can just dip your glass pen or dip pen straight into the bottle. You can decant a little bit and use it that way. You can even drop a little bit of the ink from one of the water brushes onto the dip pen. Just be mindful when you're dipping straight into any bottle of ink that what you're dipping in there with is clean. Otherwise you're going to add whatever you've got on the pen to the ink bottle that you have. So just be wise, like Minerva's owl. I love drawing owls and all of these gorgeous colors. So I'm using a little bit of Cyclops here for that deeper color, which is in that greens family, but more of a cooler green, and the warmer greens are for the feathers and the body of the bird. They're a nice combination between the two. Mercury, which is this color, and this god, he was the messenger of the gods because he could move freely between the different worlds. And maybe one of the things I love most about him, besides his little winged shoes, which were rather precious, he's also in modern fashion. The messenger bag is based on his little satchel, which he used to carry his godly messages around in it. To this very day, it's known as a messenger bag because of Mercury, or Hermes in the Greek myths is the same as Mercury here. I just love the way this colour changes. So remember I was talking about it before, it's almost like a highlighter yellow, and that's why I wanted to show it to you again. Centaur is happening here also. And I just want you to watch this colour developing and splitting and doing its various things. Here is Chimera, and it reminded me very much, as I was drawing this, of my little dog Zorro. This is how I think he sees himself when he is barking, I don't know, flowers, leaves, tiny little birds. He's protecting the realm as the Chimera. But look at the way these colours interact with each other, and look at the pinks that are coming along in Centaur as the colours gradiate and split, making such a complex version of brown. We've got tans in there, we've got deep ochres, and we've got a little bit of burgundy starting to evolve as well. The colour that I was just drawing then was Cyclops, hence the one eye. I just think this colour, for a dank undergrowth green, it's just so beautiful. I'm using Centaur and a little bit of Jupiter as well to make some details in my Mercury statue here. And all of the beautiful layers of colours that just sort of happen so straightforwardly and easily with these inks. And look at the colours mixed to this. So here are all of the colours in the Roman Gods and Monsters inks. Some of them are mixed with each other, but you can see everything. And look, Neptune's there. I just don't like Neptune / Poseidon very much, so he just has a tiny little trident present. The colour is gorgeous though. And here's a little close-up look so you can see how these colours mingle with each other. The different types of marks we can make with them, and the way the colours mix and shade and split and gradiate and do all of those magic things. So I've used a dip pen a lot for these particular drawings, but they work beautifully in fountain pens as well. So the Rome edition joins the original Greek edition, and let's look at the full spectrum. We'll start with Apollo, which is that gorgeous gold, Mercury, Cerberus, which starts off beige and then it starts splitting into all of its other characters. We have Chimera, Athena, and Minerva. Just beautiful colours if you like to paint foliage. Beautiful for green eyes as well. Medusa is this dramatic jade. Then we go into Hydra and Persephone, our turquoises. They look very similar, but as they dry, you'll see the differences in their tones and their splits. Are gorgeous. Then we step into our clear blues with Scylla. This is Zeus, and this does splits into beautiful navies, and Harpy, which is more indigo, is like a darker blue, and absolute gem of a colour. We have Neptune, which is a stormy, steely blue, as you would expect. Then we have Aphrodite, which is a lilac, and that will start splitting into its blues and all of its other colours. Just have a look at these colours as they're drying. Just the variety in them. It's so beautiful. It can be quite subtle. It can be dramatic. It's just always gorgeous. And the overall colours are quite muted. That beautiful purple is Dionysus. Pegasus is quite similar, but again, let's let them dry, and you can already see the difference there, but you can see the difference setting on. To be quite honest, I could have a set of 60 muted purples and a set of 60 turquoises and aquas. I love those colours so much. They're so useful when you're painting people. Oh, and I'm just looking back to Aphrodite and what it's doing. My goodness. So that was Venus just there. Look at the pinks and corals. Remember I said it's warm and cool? It's just a miraculous, gorgeous creature. It's difficult to make a pink be warm and cool at the same time. We've also got Jupiter and Hermes. Again, they look quite similar, but as they dry, you'll see the differences. We have the Oars, Centaur and Minotaur. Strong, beautiful browns. And this is Hades. Pluto is the Roman version of the god of the underworld, and Hades is the Greek version. So we have them together. Oh gosh, these dark colours are gorgeous. And this is Cyclops. But you see what I mean with it? Even though they're dark, and this is a rainbow, it's got a tone. It has a muted, magical quality to these colours. And it's hard to pick a favourite because they all have their own immortality, their own gorgeousness, their own godliness and monsterliness. Now, all of the stories I've told you about the gods and monsters are alleged. They're not based in fact. I'm not a historian. I haven't really studied these as anything other than an interested amateur. So take everything that I have said with a grain of salt and the sense of fun with which they are intended. Look at what Minerva is doing. Medusa is just doing her thing. Aphrodite, Dionysus, oh my goodness, Centaur, Pluto, Cyclops. All of these colours just give me life. Like I said, use them from the bottle, put them in whatever art tool you like, and use them with reverence and love. But no need to offer sacrifices, of which the actual gods and monsters were very partial to. You don't need to do that. All you need to do is enjoy them in good health and create to your heart's content. Oh, look at these colours. These are exclusive to JaneDavenport.com.